So this will be the last segment of the year of 2021. I'm going to assume that I'm going to probably be posting this on New Year's Eve. This is pre-recorded, of course. I just want to kind of end off the year with a Patreon listener question as once again a way to thank all the people who support the podcast and let us know that we're doing a good job all throughout the year with Patreon and the YouTube membership. Just want to let people know also on New Year's Day, it has been confirmed by the voting of the fans, we will be doing a live stream on Saturday night on New Year's Day. So be sure to check that out at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. New Year's Day, the 1st of January, 2022. Man, the year has passed super quickly. So let's jump into a Patreon listener question. And this one comes from the Collector Prime. And if you want to be like Collector Prime and be a Patreon member and help support the podcast, patreon.com/protoman, or check the pinned comment or the description below. Gets your name in the end credit scroll at the end of every segment moving forward, access to our exclusive Transformer Slag Discord, the ability to ask a Patreon listener question depending on what tier you join, and so much more. So let's jump into the Collector Prime's question. He has a simple one here, and he says, "Hi, Proto, I have another question for you for the Patreon. As a masterpiece collector, are they more collectible than most mainline Hasbro items? For example, is it better to save and get a masterpiece item instead of a few Voyagers? Thanks for everything you do, the Collector Prime." You know what's funny? Like, this was something that me and Jaws D kind of a little bit covered on when we did our top 5 Transformers of 2021 just a few days ago. We kind of touched on it a little bit. And you know what? It's been an ongoing conversation pretty much in the past couple of years within the brand, in that I feel that Hasbro has slowly figured out ways to look at Masterpiece and find a way to engineer it to fit into a smaller price point budget and make it accessible. Because the thing is like, your question is it better to save up and get a Masterpiece or buy a few Voyagers? Well, the question is, number one, how much do you want to have like the best version of a figure? Because the one that I always like to look at is the Masterpiece Beast Wars line, because every single one of those were a home run. Every single one of them were absolute home runs of figures. They were just incredible, absolutely incredible representations of their original character models in that old CG show done by Mainframe Entertainment back in the mid-90s. And it's something that when I look at stuff like that, I go, well, there's no way this could ever be done in retail. They've tried before and it didn't work. And yet when Kingdom came along, now granted, not all transitions were perfect, but stuff like Masterpiece Dinobot and them looking at, okay, they did Masterpiece Dinobot, they put all that price point and engineering that could exist from a Masterpiece toy, which pretty much has no price point. They just, whatever it costs to make it, they make it, and then they just put the price that matches that. And then they go, how could we take that Masterpiece Dinobot and fit it within a Voyager price point, what Transformers were for Cybertron Kingdom, within the limitations of the paint budget, the plastic budget, and everything like that. And they pulled it off. They did very well. Wasn't 100% perfect, but they pulled it off. And same thing with Tigatron, from his Masterpiece to the retail release. Same thing with even, let's say, Optimus Primal and Megatron. They did very, very good jobs at that. Now, they're not perfect, but they did a very good job. And considering, a Beast Wars Megatron or a Beast Wars Dinobot could run you between $200 and $250, depending on where you're buying it, and the Voyager will only run you MSRP of whatever your region is for a Voyager class Kingdom figure, the argument is there that, might as well get the Voyager, right? So it really has to do with, how much, you want to have perfection, because the truth of the matter is that you're not going to have your complete display of certain figures for a very long time if you go the Masterpiece route. And you could argue, oh, well, you just get the third-party guys to fill it in. That's not the best way to go about it, because I always find that you're wasting your money, because in the pursuit of filling in your slots for those missing characters with third-party, you end up getting rid of them later on when those official ones do come up in general. And then what's the point? I mean, as someone who buys every Hot Rod figure, even third-party ones, I see that sometimes the pursuit for perfection due to impatience leads to a lot of wasted money. And I don't buy those Hot Rod third-party figures because I'm looking to fill a gap. I'm buying because I collect Hot Rod figures and Rodimus figures. So it's something that I could only imagine someone who was impatient for a perfect Hot Rod figure, a perfect Rodimus figure, and got one of the many different third-party versions and, ended up wasting money. There's a whole bunch of other factors too. I mean, Masterpiece collectors are kind of, also people that usually have more money. If you're someone who regularly collects the Masterpiece Transformers, you're usually someone who's of a demographic that does have the disposable income to be spending on those kind of Transformers, where the bulk of Transformer fans can't afford Masterpiece, and thus they're willing to not buy Masterpiece Tigatron, even though they love the character, and wait for when a retail version, a Hasbro retail version from Mainline exists. And it works out for them in the end, at least in general. Once again, I think that, the Tigatron that came out from Transformers War for Cybertron Kingdom looks fantastic, but I also think the Masterpiece one looks fantastic and looks perfect. You get what you pay for in a lot of ways. Hasbro figured out a way to reverse engineer as much as they can and make some incredible product, and you get what you pay for. You're not getting 100% perfection from a Masterpiece, but you're getting something that's pretty darn good for Voyager class MSRP or Leader class MSRP. And not to mention, we're also entering an era now where sometimes the retail versions end up being even better than the Masterpiece, given if there's enough time in between their original releases and the mainline product. That was the conversation that came up with me and Jaws D when we were talking about Studio Series 86 Rodimus in the top 5 Transformers of 2021, where, we had MP09 Hot Rod, and it was something where it was like, okay, here's Masterpiece Hot Rod, MP09, that came out in 2010, 11 years ago. And at the time, it was the best Hot Rod figure you could possibly have based on that version of that character. And then they attempted to do another one, MP38, I want to say. Correct me if I'm wrong. MP38 or 20, I think it was 38. MP38 Hot Rodimus, which again, a second attempt at that version of the character as a Masterpiece. And that one wasn't, I don't know. That one kind of fell flat in a lot of ways. And that was that. And then we have Studio Series 86 Hot Rod that comes out. And it makes me wish that now they're going to go revisit Hot Rod again, use what they learned from Studio Series 86 Hot Rod, and engineer that into the wider price point of a Masterpiece. Where if you would have bought the Masterpiece versions, you would have gotten the lesser product. Where if you would have got the Studio Series 86 one, you would have got the better product. And that's coming from a guy who has everything of that character. Every little bed sheet, pillow, sticker, everything of that character. So it's kind of a flip-flop where at the time, it really has to do with what you want to collect. I mean, I still feel that Masterpiece is the pinnacle, the best that you could get of Transformer products in general. Not always, but in general. I mean, there still is a lot of Masterpieces that were kind of hit or miss, and the retail ones were better, Hot Rod being one of them. Let me just turn my head here and look over. A lot of the older ones. I mean, I firmly believe that, we had 3 different attempts at the Starscream mold. We had the first one, the MP3, and then we had I believe it was MP11, which was the second one, which was just pretty much a retool of MP3. And then when we got Siege and Earthrise Starscream, they kind of looked at those and went, I think we have to reinvent the wheel a little bit. And then we got the recent Masterpiece, I believe it's 52. I have to remember all these numbers in my head. MP52 or MP53. They had the, they redid it again. And now we have that version. So it's something too. If you scramble to get the masterpieces when they come out, sometimes you can end up buying the lesser versions. And then a retail one comes out and kind of teaches us what's a better way to, sculpt it. And then they take that sculpting of that retail version that was stuck in a Voyager price point, then bring it back to a masterpiece that has an open-ended price point that could only cost as much as it needs to cost. And you get some really cool stuff. I mean, sometimes they knock it out of the park, Masterpiece Soundwave, Masterpiece Shockwave. They take those toys, they bring them down to the Voyager price point like they did. The Soundwave in the Netflix Voyager scale is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic, but so is the Masterpiece. So it really is just a matter of what your price point and what your scale is at that. So it really, it's a tough one to answer. Because everyone is different. Everyone has different financial backgrounds. If you're someone that doesn't have a lot of money, if you're someone who, does have a job but has a family or has a lot of expenses and they only have maybe, if they're lucky, $100 a month to put towards their hobby, if they're even lucky to have that, then some of the masterpieces are already pricing them out. They would have to save for months on end just to be able to get some of these masterpieces. Where them not getting that Tigatron, which would have ran them $200, and instead getting the Voyager for $29.99 MSRP in some United States areas, it would be the better bet. It's kind of a tough question to answer because everyone comes from different walks of life. It really has to do with, number one, what you as an individual wants to obtain. Do you want to have a complete collection of characters? You're probably going to wait a while with Masterpiece. Do you want to have larger interpretations of those characters because masterpieces are much larger in scale to your standard mainline stuff, usually in that Voyager to Toller's kind of scale and pricing and pieces and engineering? Then you go Masterpiece. If you want to have something that almost looks perfect to the animation model or the character, because that's usually the pursuit of the Masterpiece line, then you go Masterpiece. Not always. But I'd have to say, historically, I'm looking again at my Masterpiece display, historically about 95% of the time. So, but again, what does Mainline give you? Affordable alternatives. The ability to build a whole cast in a shorter period of time. If you were someone that wanted to complete the Season 1 Beast Wars character line, Maximals and Predacons, if you would have started that journey back when MP Convoy came out, Beast Convoy, the first Optimus Primal masterpiece, well, you're still going to be waiting. Because as of this recording, I think, how many we got? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 characters, of a potential, 13 for Season 1? So you're going to be waiting a while before they get to that Masterpiece Inferno or Rat Trap. So, but if you were someone who just came in during Kingdom, just the beginning of this year, and said, I want to complete my Season 1 Beast Wars cast, well, we're almost done. We're waiting on Inferno, pretty much. So it's something that, and Tarantulas, obviously. Legacy is going to give us the rest. Like you're going to have, your journey is going to be all done within barely a year and a half, as opposed to, in the case of the masterpieces, still going on. God, when did that Convoy come out? I want to say like 5 years ago, something like that. Oof, time flies because of the big V. But yeah, it's really has to do with your journeys, your wallet, how much time you have, space, because they're larger too. There's a lot of different factors. Me personally, because I'm such an engineering, otaku, and I just love comparing the two, I just end up getting both and just enjoying both. But I have the finances to do it, and I have the space to do it, and it's just because I really like comparing them. I really do. I really like getting Masterpiece Cheetor and then getting the Kingdom one, which is nothing close to Masterpiece Cheetor, but still really fun to compare it to. And then put it next to, Universe 2.0 Cheetor, which was absolutely terrible, so, and compare that, journey. So it's a tough one to answer. It really is. It's something where you have to look at your own wallet and decide. But for most Transformer fans, and I hate to speak for most Transformer fans, but for most Transformer fans, I think sticking to Mainline is the safer bet. It just really is. Primarily because I've seen now what's going on in recent years, and that was the topic that was happening a lot in the top 5 segment, was we're seeing more and more stuff that was engineered as masterpieces being brought back to the Mainline and looking fantastic. I mean, after that Beast Wars Dinobot masterpiece came out, it was just like, wow. And then they figured out a way to comparably, it's not perfect, but comparably pull it off with Kingdom. And a lot of people were very satisfied. So that's my take. I don't know. Let me know your take. What do you think? Do you think it's better just to get the masterpiece versions? Or is it better to save your money and put it towards getting more Mainline product instead? Is it better for your wallet? Is it better for your space? Is it better just for your display because it just looks nicer? Let me know what you think. And if you want to be like the Collector Prime and join the Patreon and help support the podcast, again, patreon.com/Protoman, or the pinned comment or the description below. And I hope to see you all tomorrow, Saturday night, for the live stream and celebrate the beginning of a brand new year going into Legacy and beyond.